I still remember the sound of the front door slamming behind me. Not because it was loud, but because of what came right before it. My husband looked me dead in the eyes after 10 years of marriage and said, "A woman who can't give me a child is not a real wife." Then he threw my suitcase onto the porch while his mother stood behind him, smiling like she had just won some kind of prize. I stood there in the rain holding a medical folder that proved the infertility wasn't even my fault. He never bothered to read it. And the worst part? 2 weeks later, I saw photos online of him celebrating with another woman. But that's not even the part that changed my life forever. The part that changed everything happened 3 months later, when a widowed CEO I had never met before looked at me across a crowded hospital hallway while holding his little daughter's hand and quietly said, "Come with me." I know how insane that sounds. If someone else told me this story a year ago, I probably wouldn't have believed it either. But I need you to tell me honestly, if you were in my position, would you have done the same thing I did? My name is Elena, and before all of this happened, I thought my life was normal. Not perfect, but stable. I was the kind of woman who believed loyalty mattered more than grand romance. I met my husband Victor when I was 24 years old. He was charming in public, ambitious, funny when he wanted to be, and very good at making people think he was a kind man. That last part fooled everyone, including me. We got married after 2 years together, and at first, life felt simple. We lived in a small apartment, struggled financially, worked long hours, and dreamed about building a family together someday. Back then, whenever he talked about children, he used to hold my hand and smile. He would say things like, "Our daughter is going to have your eyes," and I believed every word. The pressure started slowly after we had been married for about 4 years. Every family dinner turned into an interrogation. His mother would ask me when she was finally getting grandchildren. His older sister used to laugh and say, "Maybe Elena enjoys sleeping too much to become a mother." At first, I tried to laugh it off. I thought they were just insensitive. But eventually, Victor stopped defending me. Then he started joining them. Not openly at first, just small comments, little digs. "Maybe we should try harder. Maybe you should stop stressing so much. Maybe something's wrong." So we started going to doctors. Appointment after appointment, blood tests, hormone treatments, scans, procedures. I cannot even explain how humiliating infertility treatments can feel when you're already emotionally exhausted. Every month became a cycle of hope, followed by heartbreak. Every negative test felt like a funeral I had to quietly survive alone. And during all of it, Victor became colder. He stopped touching me unless it was about trying for a baby. Conversations disappeared. Romance disappeared. I started feeling less like a wife, and more like a broken machine that kept disappointing him. Then came the day everything shattered completely. I remember sitting in the fertility specialist's office, wearing a pale blue sweater because Victor once told me blue made me look calm. The doctor walked in holding our final results. She looked nervous. That should have been my first clue. She explained very carefully that, after extensive testing, the issue wasn't with me. It was Victor. There were complications that made it nearly impossible for him to father a child naturally. I looked at him expecting shock, maybe sadness, maybe relief that I wasn't the problem after all. Instead, his face changed in a way I had never seen before. Not heartbreak. Rage, pure rage. He accused the doctor of being incompetent. He stood up so suddenly the chair fell backward. Then he stormed out without even looking at me. I chased him into the parking lot in the pouring rain. I kept saying we could still adopt, or try other options, or just live our lives together, because I loved him, and none of this mattered more than our marriage. He turned toward me with this terrifying emptiness in his eyes and said, "No man wants to live with pity." Then he drove away and left me standing there alone. After that day, he barely spoke to me for weeks. He came home late. He ignored my messages. He slept in the guest room. Then one evening I walked into the kitchen and found his mother sitting at the table beside him. She didn't even pretend to care about my feelings anymore. She just looked at me and said, "You've brought shame into this family long enough. I still thought we could fix things. That's the embarrassing part." I still believed love could save us. But 1 week later, he handed me divorce papers. I couldn't even breathe when I saw them. 10 years together reduced to signatures on white paper. I begged him to talk to me. I begged him to remember our vows. He just stared at his phone and said, "I wasted enough time already." The night he threw me out was freezing cold. I had nowhere to go except my older cousin Sophia's tiny apartment across town. I slept on her couch for nearly 3 months. During those months, I felt myself disappearing. I stopped recognizing the woman in the mirror. I barely ate. I avoided friends because I couldn't stand hearing people say things like, "Everything happens for a reason." Then came the final humiliation. One afternoon, Sophia accidentally showed me social media photos of Victor at a beach resort with a younger woman named Vanessa. She was pregnant. He had posted captions about, "Finally starting the family I deserve." I locked myself in the bathroom and cried until my chest physically hurt. What destroyed me wasn't jealousy. It was the realization that the man I spent a decade loving never truly loved me at all. After the divorce, I needed work desperately. My savings were almost gone because Victor had handled most of our finances, and during the separation I discovered he had secretly drained our joint account. So I took the first decent job I could find, receptionist at a private pediatric therapy clinic downtown. That clinic changed my life, not immediately. At first it was just work. I answered phones, scheduled appointments, handled paperwork, and tried to survive one day at a time. But there was something healing about being around children again. Even when they cried or screamed or ran through the hallways, they brought warmth back into a part of me that had gone numb. One rainy Tuesday evening, everything changed. The clinic was about to close when a man rushed through the doors, carrying a little girl wrapped in a blanket. She couldn't have been older than 6. She was burning with fever and crying weakly against his shoulder. The father looked terrified. Not stressed. Terrified. I immediately called for the nurse while helping him fill out emergency forms. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely write. The little girl kept whispering, "Daddy, don't leave me." And then something strange happened. He started crying, not loudly, not dramatically. Just silent tears rolling down the face of a man, clearly trying to stay strong for his child. I had never seen anything like it before. He looked exhausted. His tie was crooked, his sleeves rolled unevenly, dark circles under his eyes like he hadn't slept in weeks. But the way he held that little girl, like she was the center of his universe. It hit something inside me I thought had died. Her name was Lily. His name was Daniel Carter. I didn't know it then. But he was the CEO of one of the largest architecture firms in the city. To me, he was just a frightened father trying not to lose his daughter. The fever turned out to be severe pneumonia complications. Lily had to stay overnight at the hospital for observation. Hours passed. Daniel refused to leave her bedside even once. Around midnight, he came to the reception desk looking completely drained because the vending machines were broken and he hadn't eaten all day. I offered him the sandwich I had packed for dinner. He tried refusing at first, but eventually accepted. And I swear I'll never forget the way he looked at me after taking the first bite. Like kindness was something he hadn't experienced in a very long time. Over the next few weeks, Lily returned for follow-up visits, and every time Daniel came in, he seemed more comfortable talking to me. Eventually I learned his wife had died 2 years earlier from cancer. Since then, he had raised Lily alone while running a massive company. He admitted he constantly felt like he was failing at both. One afternoon, Lily walked up to me during her appointment and handed me a crayon drawing. It showed her holding hands with me and Daniel, beneath a giant, crooked rainbow. At the top she had written, "My happy people." I almost cried right there in the hallway. For the first time in years I felt seen. Needed safe. Daniel started lingering after appointments just to talk. We discussed books, grief, childhood memories, fears. He listened when I spoke, really listened. No one had done that for me in years, but I never told him about Victor. Not at first, I was too ashamed. Then one evening after the clinic closed, he found me crying quietly in the storage room because I had received legal notices about additional debts Victor left behind in my name. Daniel didn't pressure me. He simply sat beside me on the floor while I finally told him everything. The infertility, the divorce. baying thrown out, the betrayal, every ugly detail. When I finished, he was silent for a long time then. He said something I still think about almost every day. He said, "A person who abandons someone during pain doesn't deserve the love they lost." I broke down sobbing after that. Not because of the words themselves. Because it was the first time someone made me feel like I wasn't defective. Weeks turned into months. Daniel and Lily slowly became part of my everyday life. We had dinners together sometimes. Lily insisted I attend her school recital. Daniel started smiling more. I started laughing again. Real laughter. The kind that surprises you, because you forgot you could still feel joy. But I was terrified to trust it. Part of me kept waiting for it all to collapse. Then came the night everything changed forever. Lily had an asthma attack during a charity gala Daniel was attending. He rushed her to the hospital, and I met them there after he called me in panic. Lily recovered quickly, but the whole experience shook Daniel badly. Around 3 in the morning, after Lily finally fell asleep in her hospital bed, we sat together in the hallway under those awful fluorescent lights hospitals always have. He looked at me for a long time before speaking. Then he quietly said, "Come with me." I remember blinking in confusion. He smiled weakly and clarified, "Not just tonight, I mean, in life. Come with me. I don't want to do this without you anymore." I could barely breathe. Part of me wanted to run, because after Victor, I didn't trust love anymore. But another part of me looked through the hospital room window and saw Lily sleeping peacefully, while clutching the stuffed rabbit I had bought her. And suddenly, I realized something. Family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about who stays. Now, before I tell you what I answered, I want you to imagine being in my shoes for a second. After everything I survived, after being told I was worthless because I couldn't have children, after having my heart completely destroyed. Would you have trusted someone again? Would you have risked loving another person knowing how badly it could hurt if things fell apart? Because that's exactly the choice I had in front of me that night. So pause for a moment and tell me honestly in the comments what you would have done. I wish I could say, I immediately ran into Daniel's arms and everything became perfect overnight. But real life doesn't work that way. I told him I was scared, terrified, actually. I admitted I didn't know how to believe someone could love me without eventually resenting me. And that's when Daniel did something no one had ever done before. He didn't try to convince me. He didn't pressure me. He just took my hand and said, "Then let me prove it slowly." That sentence changed my life. We started carefully, patiently. For months, Daniel never rushed me into anything. He showed love through consistency, through showing up, through small acts of care that slowly rebuilt parts of me Victor had destroyed. Meanwhile, Lily became attached to me in a way that scared and healed me at the same time. She started calling me before bedtime just to tell me about her day. She begged me to come to school events. One afternoon, she accidentally called me Mom, while excitedly running toward me in the park. Then she froze in horror. Poor thing thought I'd be upset, but I just knelt down and hugged her while trying not to cry. That night I cried anyway, not from sadness, from the overwhelming realization that love had found me again in the exact form I thought life denied me forever. A year later, Daniel proposed during a quiet dinner at home, while Lily hid behind the kitchen counter, trying not to giggle before jumping out with flowers. I said yes, and, for the first time in my life, it felt like the word truly meant safety. But life had one final twist waiting for me. 2 months before the wedding, I ran into Victor unexpectedly at a grocery store. He looked terrible, older, bitter, exhausted. Vanessa had apparently left him after discovering his financial problems and repeated cheating. The child he proudly claimed online wasn't even his biologically. Karma has a strange sense of humor sometimes. When he saw the engagement ring on my finger, his expression changed instantly. Then he asked the question I never thought I'd hear. "Did you ever really love me?" I stared at him for a long moment before answering, "Yes, but you only loved what I could give you." He looked like I slapped him. Then he said something even more shocking. I made a mistake, and maybe years earlier, hearing those words would have shattered me emotionally. But standing there in that grocery aisle, all I felt was peace. Because I finally understood something important. Closure doesn't come from apologies. It comes from realizing you survived without the person who hurt you. I wished him well and walked away. That was the last time I ever saw him. Daniel and I got married in a small ceremony surrounded by close friends and family. Lily walked me down the aisle because she insisted, "Daddy cries too much." And honestly, she wasn't wrong. Daniel cried before I even reached the altar. A year after the wedding, we officially finalized Lily's request for me to adopt her legally. The judge asked her why it mattered so much, and I swear the entire courtroom started crying when she answered. Because she chose us when she didn't have to. Even now, I still think about those words, because she was right. Love is a choice. Staying is a choice. Kindness is a choice. And sometimes the people who are rejected by the world end up building the strongest families of all. I used to believe infertility meant my story had ended before it even began. I thought being unable to have biological children made me less valuable somehow. But life gave me something I never expected. Not the family I imagined, but the family I needed. So if you're watching this while going through heartbreak, betrayal, divorce, rejection, or loneliness, please hear me when I say this. The people who walk away from you during your darkest moments do not get to define your worth. Sometimes losing the wrong persons is how you finally find the right life. And honestly, if Victor had never thrown me out that night, I never would have met the little girl who changed my heart forever, or the man who taught me what real love actually looks like. So tell me in the comments. What would you have done in my situation? Would you have trusted love again after all that pain? And do you think Victor deserved forgiveness after everything he did? Like this video if you were on my side. Subscribe for more emotional and heartwarming stories like this one, and share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section below. Thank you for listening to my story. I'll see you all in the next story.